Welcome back to PipeCast. This is another filler episode. GLP's is Cairo. We'll let Patrick go over it a little bit.
All right, so what we're looking at here is Cairo. Cairo is made up of Perique, Bright Virginia, Red Virginia, and Orientals. It is also made up of what they call on the tin orange Virginias. Um, I don't have that as an example, but as you can tell, it it's very much Oriental and Virginia. I'm hard pressed to find much Perique. I believe the tin note or the tin description says a whisper of Perique, and I believe that is accurate. I think you might be able to see one right there. But yeah, it's predominantly Virginia Oriental. Of course, like we've talked about before, Oriental and especially, both the Virginias, they're sort of hard to discern what's what. So, but yeah, that is Cairo. So yeah, that was the blend Cairo. It's a nice little ribbon cut blend. In it, I know with talking about that whisper of Perique, like it's hard to find Perique in there, but in the smoke, it's there. I mean, I can taste it, but yeah, on first glance of that blend, it's almost like it shouldn't be, like there is no Perique. But yeah, what do you make of that? What do you think about Cairo so far?
First impression, it's it's pretty good. It's not. It's man, this is probably going to be the hardest first impression because it's actually pretty difficult to narrow down what exactly I'm smoking.
Mm.
Um, it doesn't taste like a vapor, and it doesn't have any characteristics that would be similar to a Scottish mixture. It doesn't remind me of other Oriental ish forward Virginia blends, say like a Regent's Flake or something. Um, this blend is, it kind of has a very cigarette quality to it.
Yeah.
I feel like that that is that's not a bad thing necessarily, especially to a former like cigarette smoker. Um, it's not terrible. I wouldn't probably go out of my way to smoke this too often. It's got a very sort of universal tobacco flavoring to it, which isn't bad. It's very tobacco forward. This is sort of what I think about when I have been presented a tin in probably the earlier parts of my smoking with a pipe
Mm-hmm.
and allowed to just smell the tobacco, and you really can't pinpoint what it is when you're kind of first starting. You just sort of like you're sort of identifying that yes, this is tobacco.
Yeah.
Later on, you can start to kind of like pick up like, oh, a smoky characteristic is this, or like, oh, I can smell like a sweeter aspect to
Mm-hmm.
it. There's like an earthier tone to, and just that's just the like olfacular. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think so. Aspect of smoking tobacco, just kind of like getting that whiff and smelling it. This seems like very characteristic of a middle of the road tobacco flavor, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
It's just so tobacco. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
so like it just reminds me of how I sort of first came into smoking tobacco, where it's like I'm not really picking out anything in particular. It just has a very cigarette-y
Yeah.
kind of, you know, a little bit exotic cigarette, I guess is the way I would put this. It's
Yeah.
not going to be sort of a corporate Marlboro Camel cigarette. I mean, but it has that sort of quality to it. Like I said, it's not terrible. I have no idea if something like this would age very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Virginia definitely hides behind the Oriental, which is where I'm getting a lot of that cigarette from. The Perique, I don't even feel like it's even existent in this
Mm-hmm.
blend. There's not as much going on that makes it super complex, which is why is probably, if you just love tobacco or if you're a former cigarette smoker, this is probably like one of the best all day smokes you could probably come upon. It would probably be interesting. I would probably not do this, but it'd probably be interesting to throw a filter on a pipe and inhale this.
Mm-hmm.
That's how mild it is in comparison to other things that I've smoked. Um, like I said, you're not going to get much of a flavor bomb. This is, like I said, it's not cheap tobacco. You can taste the difference. I've actually smoked what is quote unquote pipe tobacco. It's really just cigarette shag cut called pipe tobacco to sort of get away from having to incur some of those cigarette taxes.
Mm.
But this is a higher quality grade of that.
Yeah.
That's kind of my first. This is actually extremely hard to pin down. It's not. It's not. And the reason it is because there's not too much to say about it. Kind of reminds me of like cigarettes, tobacco that I've had before, and there is not enough that it's an overall mystery.
Yeah. Interesting enough, if you read like reviews on Cairo, on tobacco reviews, people are either saying exactly what you just said, exactly what you just said, and some people like love it. Um, I have heard and read that the first smoke of it usually people get a bad impression on the first smoke, even people who like it now, and I don't know what that is. I've never gotten a cigarette type uh, like taste out of this, which I have smoked cigarettes, but I was never what you would call a cigarette smoker. Um, the only time I got any kind of essence of cigarette was I went on a walk with my wife, and I got cigarette smoke or cigarette smell from the aroma. I caught a whiff of the smoke after it came out the pipe, and I was like, that sort of has a cigarette type smell to it. Um, and I sort of got worried. I was like, well, let me stay behind her so she doesn't smell this. Um, I've never really picked up any cigarette flavor in the taste. More what I get out of it, I get a, I get the sort of earthiness of the exotic or of the Oriental, and then that sweetness from the Virginia, and then the Perique pops up enough for me to sort of tell it's there, but it doesn't really do a lot, but it definitely brings a little bit extra going on there to sort of balance out the sweetness. Um, I like it a lot, and I think probably if I'm gonna sort of break down uh, I guess the mind part of this, um, I think because it does have that just generic, to some people, that generic flavor, and since I haven't been one to smoke the cigarettes, it's a unique flavor for me enough to sort of like, well, that's interesting. I'll go back to it because it is just different in a way. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but that's sort of I guess where I'm trying to come to terms with it because I think it's a good blend. But again, I think you're either gonna like it or you may not love it, but you may not
Yeah,
like it
I mean,
either.
I don't think it's not like me saying outright that I hate it. Like I said, I think this is a good everyman smoke. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like if you're like, I don't want to smoke cigarettes anymore, this is probably what I'd point you to. Like,
Mm.
if you want to smoke a pipe and you're looking to get away from cigarettes, I think Cairo would probably a smart transition.
Mm.
If you're a steady pipe smoker, I don't know if you're going to find anything of interest in this unless maybe you do not have a history with cigarettes. I find that most pipe smokers have had other run ins with tobacco, so they kind of know what's up in that regard. Not saying Patrick
Mm.
doesn't, but like clearly he hasn't smoked enough cigarettes to kind of sort of feel the same way,
Yeah.
which is interesting because it seems like he has this new introduction to a very specific blend that most cigarette smokers are probably already familiar with. And then he's having to come to terms with it. It turns out he likes it. Maybe that's the reason why I'm sort of shut off from it because maybe there's like a missing burning paper element. That sounds disgusting to me even
Mm.
now. But like maybe there's like another additive in there that would make this something else.
Yeah. It would be interesting to. It does seem like a very uh, good blend, or it has high potential to be a good blend that you could take to be the base of something. If you wanted to start blending your own stuff, like take it as a base, and then either up the Perique or bring in some dark fired Kentucky, maybe a little bit more burley to bring out some more nuttiness to it. You could sort of buy it as a blending tobacco,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of just because it gives you a good base kind of to build off of in a way. Because if you wanted to add Latakia, you could, but because there is no Latakia, it's sort of and it doesn't have any burley. It sort of has a chance to sort of go in any kind of direction, kind of. Um,
I feel like if you didn't know what you were doing, adding anything to this could actually make it a lot worse
oh, really?
than a lot better. Which, yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like adding much to this is going to help unless you know exactly what you're up to or up
yeah,
against. Uh,
mm,
I would definitely, I mean, I think this would take some experimentation.
yeah,
You
yeah,
might
for
need to
sure.
add something to this to make it a little bit. And it might be just as simple as adding, a touch more Perique and then maybe a topping. But odds are adding anything to it and if you do not know what you're doing, is probably going to make this a lot worse before it makes it any better.
Yeah, so it's a. I guess you can experiment with it and see.
It just seems like it would be difficult to tame or kind of like dial in
Yeah, yeah,
because it seems like it wants to be something very specific, yet struggles with that
mm,
a little bit because it sort of has this reminiscent cigarette thing going on.
that is interesting. But yeah. If you watch or if you look at the reviews, like over half of them say hey talk about the cigarette ish flavor to it. But then you look at the ones that sort of give it like 3 and 4 stars. There's no mention of it. So it's a weird blend. I don't know how often that happens where a blend is so divided. I guess. I mean, all the blends that I've interacted with, well, Haunted Bookshop's sort of a divided one. And I think that's just because of its popularity. Um, some people don't like it, some people do.
People go to trash stuff, and in my opinion, shouldn't be like you should always make up your mind based on what your tastes are.
Yeah,
My tastes say cigarette. That's not something that I'm going to go out of my way to acquire again unless I want a cigarette. This might be a great thing to hand roll. Just it's probably a little bit coarser of a tobacco to have a hand rolled cigarette out of, but I think if you were going to go in that direction, that would be something to take into consideration. Um, I don't think, I don't think I would probably. I think after I smoke a couple more bowls, I don't think I'll revisit this.
so yeah, it's one of those blends you're just gonna have to try to find out, I guess, how you come down on it because the jury is sort of still out. I would probably think if I was gonna bet money, most pipe smokers are probably gonna fall in line with you more than me, but um, like I said, you won't know until you try it, I guess.
I think you're going to have better luck with something like Regent's Flake
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
if you want something that's going to be have a geared forward Oriental in Virginia.
yeah. So that is GLP's Cairo. So we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we hope to see you back.
Thank you.